I actually high-fived a Ranger fan last night watching this game. He turned to me with his hand up in the air, and I said, I can't do it. I can't leave him hanging. I high-fived a Ranger fan. I'm going to be high-fiving you this morning, I feel, at some point. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Very fulfilled, very happy. An amazing performance in the third period, of course, by Kreider and, of course, by Trocheck and all the top guys. And, you know, the pass that Ryan Lindgren made to Kreider to give him the natural hat trick was amazing. You know, they caught the Canes on a long shift, and Ryan Lindgren, of all people, does an unbelievable job going behind the net and throws it right out in front of the net, right on the stick for Kreider to accomplish the hat trick. It was an amazing play. But, you know, more so than Kreider putting the team on his back, I'm telling you, Igor Shesterkin had his Henrik Lundqvist moment last night. It really was amazing. I mean, you know, this is a guy that has faced 63 high-danger shots in 10 games in the playoffs.
High-danger shots.
High-danger shots, like, you know, shots you listen to Steve Valiquette, he'll tell you all the time.
High danger.
You know exactly what the hell he's talking about. And Igor just showed up. And that's a dangerous number because that's a very high number, and you'd like to have less of those. But when you have an athletic goalie that is in the zone, even if he gives up 3 goals, you know, he is saving their ass time and time again. So it's Igor who I start with, and then it's Kreider with the hat trick. But there are so many other players that do little things in these games that give you the idea that they can win the game. And I thought the way the game started, they came out, they played well, they forechecked, they were skating all over the place. A couple bad bounces, a couple bad goals, you know, because of lazy defense or just a bad bounce, whatever the situation may be. But at the end of the game, you sit there and you realize that, you know, we have high-skilled players who all showed up last night, and they all showed up on the score sheet, and Vincent Trocheck was a man who was possessed last night. That's the guy that they signed from Carolina 2 years ago. And for Chris Kreider, you know, he got here in the spring of 2013, played under Tortorella. His first foray was in the playoffs when he left Boston College. I watched him in Boston College when my kids were there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was a huge advocate for him when they traded him. I wanted him up here. There were times over the last 10 years where people were saying, well, you know, maybe we should trade Kreider. Maybe we should do this. And I'm like, no, you don't ever trade this guy. This guy does a lot of little things for your team. He's quiet. He's awkward. He doesn't give great interviews, but he is dedicated to the sport. He works his ass off. He's very rarely hurt. And when he throws his body around, he's about as physical as there can be in the NHL. And I saw that last night. You know, he put himself in the right spot a couple times. And let's face it, Freddie Anderson stinks. You know, Freddie Anderson is basically the guy. Like, I saw Rod Brendamore after the game last night, the Canes coach, and he's sitting there talking about the game. And I'm like, I could see on his face, we can't let that goal in. We can't let this goal in. Lafreniere had a goal off of the back in game, I think it was game 3, I think it was. I mean, you can't play goalie like that and expect to go deep into the playoffs. And quite frankly, when they needed him the most last night, he was not to be found. And that's the difference between he and Igor. Igor was to be found. He was to be found late in the game when it was still 5-on-5. It was late in the game when it was 6-on-5. And thank God Barclay Goodrow found the empty net. I mean, finally, we could all take a breath at that moment.
Right, because you'd seen so much from the Hurricanes, 6-on-5, and you're thinking, here you go again. But yes, I mean, and Igor was facing these, what'd you call high-danger shots from
that's how they describe them. Yes.
The most skilled players on the Hurricanes, you know, whether it was Gensel or Aho.
Jordan Stahl.
Right as well, right in front of the net there. Yes, so, and Svechnikov here, as they're showing on CBS Sports Network. That was another one.
How about Martin Nuke's save? You know, so Ryan Lindgren gets sprung. He makes a nice play. The puck goes through Freddie Anderson. And Jordan Martinook makes a diving save, gets the puck out of the net. I mean,
and Martinook also hit the post, too, in the third period as well. But this is one of the unbelievable plays you'll ever see. I mean, in this, I thought with my bare eye, whatever, the bare eye, my naked eye.
Yes.
My naked eye, that it had gone in. And I was confident about it. But then looking back, the entire puck did not make it over. And I mean, that was one hell of a play.
And I will say that guy right there, Jordan Martinook, is a guy that came to play last. I mean, like, they all came to play last night. I think their goalie let them down, to be honest with you. And the Rangers in the third period just put the pedal to the metal And, man, it was gas them up and let them go because their top two lines were flying. And Jody Shelley, who is a former player who's in between the benches doing with Brian Boucher, he was saying, man, this game is furious. He said it at the beginning, and he said it again, I think, a couple more times in the body of the game. And it was. I mean, it was just back and forth. And I know, it's frustrating because the way the Canes play, they play a lot of man-to-man defense, and that's one of the reasons why Ryan Lindgren was able to get around the back of the net and make the perfect pass to Chris Kreider, because when you play man-to-man defense, man, you got to keep up with fresh legs. And when you're stuck out there in the ice, it's a little bit tougher to stay with those fresh legs. And that's exactly why the Rangers were able to score that goal. And Ranger fans know this, that when our guys get stuck on the ice and the puck ends up in our zone for like 2 minutes, it's you sitting on the end of your seat and you're just hoping that Igor can just grab it and hold it, or they can clear it. But it was I don't know, a couple things I found out about last night, but I knew about one of them. And the one of them is the character of the Ranger team, because we talked about this and how they have come back all year long.
Yeah.
It's in their DNA, whether it's Peter Laviolette or whether it's Trocheck or whether it's Chris Kreider or whoever is responsible for it, or Jacob Trouba, the captain. I think there's a great leadership group on this team, and they've done it all year long. And that's why, you can't be spineless in the middle of these games. The other thing I found out is I got a lot of guys in my life that have no ball sack whatsoever. Whatsoever. I had to turn my phone off last night.
Did you?
Yeah, middle second quarter period. I had to turn it off. I couldn't take it anymore. This team is embarrassing. This team is this. I'm like, what? And it just really annoyed the living crap out of me. So I put the phone on Do Not Disturb.
All right. Locked in.
Right. And then when I put the phone back on, after the Rangers had scored the empty net goal, I had 57 messages.
Sure.
Because I'm through all these different text threads, right? And, this is not for the faint of heart. The playoffs, whether it be in the NBA or the NHL, is you have to be balls to the wall. You got to be all in. You can't be second guessing things. And watching this team play all year long, it's no surprise that they are where they are. Now, how they got here, and with that amazing third period last night by Chris Kreider, that doesn't usually happen the way it happened last night. And it just goes to show you how quickly a hockey game can turn in an instant.
Yeah, I think that the way they got there is even more impressive than if they had swept this series, honestly, because this is what a champion has to deal with eventually in the postseason. And it happened to happen here in the second round where things got a little tight after being up 3-0. They got punched in the face in Game 5. They got punched in the face in the middle of this game, and they kept coming back. And the longest tenured Rangers said, I'm not letting this happen. We are not going back for this Game 7 with the Hurricanes having the momentum, and you get your goalie, who is someone that's going to have to be spectacular for you to win the cup, being spectacular in the biggest moment. This was, when you talk about what a championship team is how they're built and how they win, and this is example A. This is what you want to see from your team. If you saw a terrible Carolina Hurricanes team last night that came out slow and disinterested like the Rangers did in Game 5, then I'm not as impressed with that victory. Last night, with that place going crazy and thinking that they're going to come back from a 3-0 deficit and force a Game 7 and on the road for the Rangers to come back and win that hockey game was amazing. And you saw that poor kid that was crying in the stands. And I said, man, just stop now with the sports, man. I'm telling you, it's just going to continue to break your heart year in and year out. There's a lot of Ranger fans that saw that last night and said, listen, kid, I wasn't young enough or old enough in 94 to remember it. I've been there crying, and I finally got here in my 30s and 40s. Yes. So just that my recommendation to that child would be just drop it. Get another hobby. You don't want to be us. You just don't.
That kid, I think, reflects all of us as fans.
Yeah.
I don't care. He's rooting for the Canes. His Canes end up collapsing at the end here, and Freddie Anderson gives up that first goal to Kreider, which was, the puck is sitting right there, man. And Kreider's there, and sometimes you'll see him because that's where he hangs around. And, he'll always take a whack at a puck down there. And lo and behold, this time, Freddie Anderson doesn't put his glove on it. And and Chris is able to get his stick on it, and it goes in. And at that moment, I was like, okay, here we go. You could just feel it. You could feel the tension building for Carolina. Although I have to say, we all got on the Rangers in Game 5. They were leading 1-0 going into the third period. And we didn't like the way the beginning of the third period started, and then Jordan Staal scores that goal to tie the game. And there were a lot of miscues that were made, and they weren't sharp, as Peter Laviolette said after that game. But they still were winning 1-0 going into the third period, and they weren't playing their best game. So now, all of a sudden, you could see the forecheck, you could see the effort, you could see that they all realized that it wasn't good enough, and they would have loved to have done it on home ice. But there's something to be said about a team on the road in a tough situation like Carolina was previously, and how they can just focus in on being together themselves without all the outside distractions. And there are a lot of teams that win in this round on the road. They do. I mean, it's just like Boston did it on the road. Colorado did it on the road. The Rangers did it on the road. Carolina did it on the road. So this home ice advantage thing, I don't know if there really is one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been something we've talked about for years and years. It's not so much in the NHL. You definitely have seen it more in the NBA. Certainly you have in this Knicks-Pacers series, and this is another one of those instances I'd love to see the Knicks take care of business on the road in an environment where there's all the pressure is going to be on the road team. And but this was great last night. It was funny because when they did show that kid, because I was out watching the game with some friends, they show that kid, and all the Ranger fans just start yelling at the TV, go, "Oh, boo-hoo, kid!" Whatever.
Yeah, well, and then, it could have been us,
right? I know,
and it has been us.
And then a couple Islander fans are in there like, "Oh, you guys are the worst. The kid's crying, and you're yelling at him." I was like, "This is just awesome. This is why you want these teams, regardless of." I mean, I know that there's Islander fans out there that are pissed off this happened. They wanted to see them lose, but
I would think the Islander fan would hate Carolina.
Yeah, I would agree too. But still, I mean, there's just it's been so long. As I ran into Andrew Perloff this morning. He was swinging his arm around and being very awkward.
Okay.
And he goes, man, these New York teams winning is tough for me, being a Philadelphia guy. And I said, well, it must have been a good 15 years for you because we don't do a lot of winning around here. We haven't done a lot of winning around here. So just to have this juice locally wherever you go in multiple sports, and we might have 2 conference finals. Hopefully on Monday morning when we come in, we're talking about 2 conference finals with the Knicks and Rangers in. It would be just amazing. And by the way, another 94 comparison happens, with a all third period hat trick in a elimination game.
Yeah.
A little bit different, but it still happened. Messier 94, obviously after the guarantee in the Devil series, and then Chris Kreider last night.
Well, just remember, Messier had an empty net goal for
He did. I understand.
And I love Mark, believe me. And he had the balls to say we're going to win that game, and he guaranteed it.
Right.
In the same city in which the
and
team
it was a
playing
game 7, so there's each one is impressive in its own way.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, the actual feat of what Kreider did from a hockey standpoint, just on the ice, because it was a natural hat trick and there wasn't an empty net goal, be really, really impressive. But what Messier was facing, putting his nuts on the line, game 7
against the Devils,
So I mean, it was so both, but very, very incredible. And the fact that it happened again now, 30 years later, is like, what the hell?
All right, so think about this for a second. So they sweep the first round with the Capitals. This round was not easy. It looked like they were on their way to a sweep, and all of a sudden they hit a little bump, little adversity. A penalty that leads to a game winner down in Carolina. Then they got to come home, and they lose at home, and then now they got to go on the road. I got people telling me this team is like embarrassing, and I'm like, what the F are you talking about?
Who was saying they're embarrassing?
I don't want to name names. You know who these people are.
Well, why don't you want to name names? Call them out and tell them that they're wrong.
I can't do that to them because it's a private conversation, and I just.
So these are people that everybody knows.
I finally had to turn my phone off. I'm like, you call yourself a Ranger fan, a season ticket holder. This is how you're acting in the middle of a game that's got a long way to go.
It wasn't Dimitri, was it?
No. Well, he's always Mr. Negative. Page 6. Half the news, half the time.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
He's the guy who bleaches his butthole. For people that don't know.
Yeah,
so I thought maybe he'd be a little soft in that situation.
There was some of that in that particular thread, and then there's a guy that just decided to start texting me in the middle of the second period. I just said, enough already. I can't take it. This is so annoying right now. I can't take it. And I had to tell him, I said, even if they lose this game, there's a potential for 3 more periods in Game 7.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. Stop being like a spineless jellyfish and sack up and watch your team come back and win. They've been doing it all year long.
Man, I'd love to know who these people are. I really would.
Oh, I'll show you the text. I'll show it to you just to give you an idea of what I was dealing with last night.
Okay.
Because New York fans, it's just like
we've been through a lot lately.
Yeah, but they blow with the wind.
Well, yeah. I think that's
stop.
I think that's fan bases all over the place, especially when you've seen your team blow a couple of leads in series the last number of years, and it starts creeping into your head.
To be the President's Trophy winner, a lot of things have to go right. Some things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And when you lead the league in comeback victories, that is a resume. That's what your resume says you are. And that means it's going to happen again and again and again because the team doesn't panic when they're down 2-0. They're down 2-0, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, Trocheck scores a goal. Now you're in it.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden, the momentum changes a little bit. Okay, so you give up another goal. Now you're down 3-1. Now you're just getting into the third period. You're down 3-1. There could have been a couple chances where you could end up being down 5 or 6-1, but Igor saves your ass because you're pushing, so you're going to expose him a little bit. And then the next thing you know, Kreider gets one. Now it's 3-2. Now you can start feeling it on the bench a little bit. We're in this game when they're not totally stopping us. We can get there, and if we could just get to the goalie, because he's been horrendous this entire series, we can win this game, and that's exactly what happened. That, in my eyes, that's exactly what happened. And then when the power play goal comes from an unbelievable tip by Kreider and a great pass, because it's a shot pass by Panarin. And his tip is incredible. That's what he does. That's every game that we've watched this year, especially when it's on national television. It's not Sam or Joe doing it or the guys on the radio. I kind of felt like Kenny Albert wanted to jump out of the booth last night, but he was holding back because he had to be a professional.
Sure.
But he's watched Chris Kreider do this his entire career. This is what he does, and he does it really well. And that's once you get that thing rolling, man, it's almost impossible to stop it. And all momentum shifted significantly late, due in large part to Igor. But then, of course, the Kreider just was right where he needs to be, right within 5 feet of the goal.